Good morning to one and all. Today's topic is acid peptic disease. This term acid peptic disease is a most overused term and overdiagnosed disease. Let's see what it is exactly and when do you come to a conclusion of a acid peptic disease and how do you treat the disease. By definition, peptic ulcers are areas of degeneration and necrosis of gastric intestinal mucosa exposed to the acid peptic secretions. Though they can occur at any level of the alimentary canal that is exposed by hydrochloric acid and pepsin, they occur most commonly in either duodenum or the stomach. What are the types of peptic ulcer? Depending on the site, we divide them into duodenal ulcer and gastric ulcer. Duodenal ulcers typically occurs in the first part of the duodenum, whereas gastric ulcers occur in lesser curvature adjacent to the acid secreting parietal cell mass. There is another one which is combined both of duodenal and gastric ulcer known as Zollinger-Ellison syndrome. We'll see them in detail. And again, depending on the duration, we label it as either chronic peptic ulcer or an acute peptic ulcer. What are the sites of various sites of peptic ulcer? It can occur at any place. You can look at the picture. There are ulcers in the duodenum, in the fundus, or in the body. What is the pathophysiology involved in the acid peptic disease or peptic ulcer disease? In a normal intestines or in a normal GI system, gastric acid and peptic enzymes tend to damage the lining. Whereas on the other side, surface mucus secretion, bicarbonate secretion into the mucus, mucosal blood flow, apical surface membrane transport, or the epithelial regenerative capacity, collaboration of the prostaglandins. All these are the defensive forces which prevent the damage in a normal lining of the GI system. When an injury occurs to the normal lining, what causes the injury to the normal lining or H. pylori infection or NSAID abuse, aspirin, smoking, alcohol, gastric hyperacidity, or duodenal gastric reflux, or any ischemia, shock, or delayed gastric emptying. These are the factors which causes injury to the normal lining. Once an insult or injury occurs to the normal lining, the necrotic, you can see on the extreme right, there is a necrotic debris, non-specific acute inflammation, and the granular tissue deposition, and ultimately leading to the fibrosis. This is a mechanism from normal to the peptic ulceration. You can appreciate this better in larger scale. I don't know how many of you are in looking on a mobile phone. The same thing. What are the risk factors in a H. pylori infection, NSAIDs or corticosteroids, cigarette smoking, excessive use of alcohol, stress, excess secretion of stomach acid, or a previous history of family history of peptic ulcer. Let's see the in detail about the H. pylori. It's a gram-negative organism which is spiral in shape, having multiple flagella. Sheath with flagella moves quickly in gastric lumen. It uses an adhesion molecule to bind to the Lewis B antigen on epithelial cells. Transmission route is person to person via gastric refluxate or vomiting. This is a bacillus bacteria. This is how the H. pylori looks like. These are the flagella, which helps them to move very quickly in the gastric mucosa. This is a mechanism. You can see the various steps involved in it. When there is a depletion of antral D cell, that is somatostatin, there will be increased gastrin release from G cells. In turn, will lead to the increased gastric secretion. This will cause to increase of load in duodenum to gastric metaplasia, which ultimately leads to inflammation and eventual ulceration of the mucosa. Depletion of the D cells, increased gastrin cells, and increased gastric secretion, gastric metaplasia, and inflammation, eventually ulceration. This is a cycle involved in the ulceration. What are the clinical features? Epigastric pain is the most common. When whenever a patient or somebody complains of an epigastric pain, you ultimately say that it's an gastritis or acid peptic disease. Few people or laymen, they tend to say it's an APD without knowing the basic mechanism or the things involved in it. Okay, fine. It is said that gastric ulcers present with pain associated or closely followed by eating, whereas duodenal ulcer pain is relieved by food. The pain is burning in nature. Patient awakens with pain at night. The pain may radiate to the back. Considering when your pain radiates to the back, must consider the penetration. Dyspepsia including belching, distension, and fatty food intolerance. Chest discomfort, anorexia, weight loss. These are the common complaints of long-standing acid peptic disease. Hematemesis, this occurs due to bleeding directly from the gastric ulcer or from the damage to the esophagus from severe vomiting. Rectal examination may show melena sometimes. Right. Peptic ulcers in the past tend to relapse and remit, and about 70 to 80% of the ulcers relapse within 1 to 2 years after healing by the medical therapy. This was in the past. The tendency of relapse is dramatically reduced by the eradication of H. pylori. Now the recurrence rate or the relapse rate is reduced drastically because we are eradicating H. pylori infection. Investigation. How do you investigate or come to a conclusion of acid peptic disease? Endoscopy, then followed by an H. pylori detection, either by urea breath test or stool antigen test. In radiology, you take a chest X-ray or a double contrast barium study. Some non-invasive tests are like serum gastrin levels. When the levels are more than 200 picograms per ml, it is indicative of a severe gastritis. Gastrin function studies, like a measurement of gastric acid production, you stimulate the gastric acid production. CBC, to know whether there is any chronic blood loss. This is how the endoscopy picture looks like. You can on plate B you can see the ulcer, and on the other side you can see the endoscopy taking a punch biopsy. This is how the endoscopy pass up to the duodenum, and on the right side you can see the typical endoscope with the eyepiece with a flexible shaft, flexible tip, the shaft and the other shaft transmitting light, air, and water. This is how a typical endoscope looks like. Coming to the radiology, chest X-ray, if perforation is suspected to detect a free abdominal layer. Usually you take an X-ray only when you suspect an perforation. Otherwise there is no much role of a chest X-ray. Upper gastrointestinal series, they have a lot importance. Like they are performed by experienced radiologists. Is close to the diagnostic accuracy of endoscopy. To support the endoscopy findings, they do a series of upper gastrointestinal series. These are the tests, invasive or non-invasive. An invasive rapid urease test is the most having the highest sensitivity and specificity. It is simple, fast, and though it gives a false negative with recent use of PPIs, antibiotics, and bismuth compounds. You must take that history prior to the examination. Histology, so it is having good sensitivity and specificity, but it requires pathology processing and staining, provides histologic information. Culture, it's very time consuming, expensive, dependent on experience, allows determination of antibiotic susceptibility. That's the only advantage, allowing the determination of antibiotic susceptibility. Whereas non-invasive serology, urea breath test, suitable antigen are more or less all the three are having same specificity. So, what we do usually outside is urea breath test. It's a simple, rapid, useful for early follow-up. Again, the same thing. False negatives with recent therapy is very high. So stool antigen is is very convenient and inexpensive. Serology, it's inexpensive, convenient, but not useful for early follow-up. So for early follow-up and feasibility, urea blood test is most practically comfortable and useful. What are the complications? What are the complications of acid peptic disease? Bleeding peptic ulcers, pyloric stenosis, and Zollinger-Ellison syndrome. These are the common complications we come across. What is Zollinger-Ellison syndrome? It is a rare syndrome consists of triad of non-beta cell tumors of the pancreas that contain gastric acid hypersecretion and severe ulcer disease. The somatostatin analog octreotide is effective but has no clear advantage over other PPIs. So this octreotide is a little expensive and many studies found that it is not much superior to the normal PPIs. So we shall see the acid peptic ulcer in detail. That is the gastric ulcer and duodenal ulcer. The prevalence of peptic ulcer is increasing in many Western countries. I mean, is decreasing in many Western countries as part of widespread use of H. pylori eradication therapy, but it remains to be high in some developing countries. The male to female ratio of duodenal ulcer varies from 5 is to 1 to 2 is to 1. List to the gastric ulcer is 2 is to 1 or even less. Let's compare the features between the duodenal and gastric ulcer. When you see the incidence of duodenal ulcer is 4 times more common in the gastric ulcer. The age is between 25 to 50 for duodenal ulcer, whereas in gastric ulcer it's common. It's usually beyond the 6th decade. More common in males, for both the ulcers. Etiology is the same H. pylori for both. And other factors like hypersecretion of acid and pepsin, association with the alcoholic cirrhosis, tobacco and chronic pancreatitis or for duodenal ulcer. Whereas coming to the gastric ulcer, disruption of the mucosal barrier, the most important factor for it. Along with the gastric bile reflex, drugs, alcohol, and tobacco consumption are also risk factors for gastric ulcer. Pathogenesis for duodenal ulcer, mucosal digestion from hyperacidity, most important factor. The next one comes protective gastric mucus barrier has been maybe damaged. Whereas in gastric ulcer, usually normal to low acid levels or high and the hyperacidity if present is due to high serum gastrin levels. Damage to the mucus barrier is a significant factor for gastric ulcer. And when coming to pathological changes, the most common is the first part of the duodenum or duodenal ulcer. Whereas in gastric ulcer, most common is a lesser curvature and the pyloric antrum. Often solitary in duodenal ulcer, 1 to 2.5 centimeters in size, round and oval and punched out edges. Histologically composed of 4 layers: necrotic, exudative, granulation tissue, and cicatrization. Even the gastric ulcer also it's similar from pathology point of view. Coming to the complications, duodenal ulcer, hemorrhage, perforation, and obstruction are common. Whereas gastric ulcer, hemorrhage, perforation, malignant transformation is less than 1% of the cases. So when you come across an gastric ulcer, you must always bear in mind you have to rule out carcinoma, especially in elderly population. Okay, coming to clinical features of duodenal ulcer, pain food relief pattern will be there. Night pain is common. There won't be any associated vomiting. Melena more common than hematemesis. There will be no weight loss, no particular choice of diet like fried foods or curries, etc. Marked seasonal variation will be there, occurs more commonly in the people at greater stress. On the other hand, gastric ulcer, food pain pattern will be there, no night pains, vomiting is common, hematemesis may be I mean, is more common. Significant loss of weight will be there. Deep tenderness in the midline of the epigastrium you can observe. There won't be any seasonal variation. Most often in labyrinth roots. How do you manage? And what are the how do you manage and what do you want to manage? Must first relieve the symptoms, heal the ulcer. You must able to prevent the recurrence of the ulcer, prevent the complications. Last but not the least, H. pylori eradication is the cornerstone of the therapy. What are the drugs you use in peptic ulcer disease? The drugs are aimed at either eradicating H. pylori or restoring balance between the acid and pepsin secretion and the GI mucosal defense. These drugs include systemic antibiotics, antacids like S2 receptor antagonists, proton pump inhibitors, and other peptic drugs such as misoprostol and sucralfate. Let's see what are the drugs. Most of you are aware of the PPAs. They disrupt chemical binding in stomach cells to reduce acid production, lessening irritation and allowing peptic ulcers to heal. These are the drugs which we commonly use are omeprazole, rabiprazole, pantoprazole, lansoprazole, and esomeprazole. H2 receptor antagonists. Commonly prescribed anti-ulcer drugs include cimetidine, ranitidine, famotidine, and nizatidine. And a few antacids. These are the over-the-counter medications, which include magnesium hydroxide and aluminum hydroxide, sodium bicarbonate, calcium bicarbonate, and simethicone. What are the strategies? Where do they act? Where do they act in protecting the gastric mucosa from acid exposure? Example, when you look at the H2 blockers or PPAs or prostaglandins, they inhibit the acid secretion. When you look at the sucralfate or anything, it prevents a contact. It prevents a contact of the acid with the mucous lining. Antacids, they neutralize the acid. This is a basic mechanism involved in the different drugs. Eradication of the H. pylori. This is a cornerstone of treatment of acid peptic disease. This shows you that all the available regimens for H. pylori eradication, out of which the clarithromycin triple therapy is FDA approved. The rest are not it. I'll go through it. Clarithromycin triple therapy consists of a PPI, clarithromycin 500 mg, amoxicillin 1 gram or metronidazole for 14 days, BID frequency. Bismuth quadruple therapy. It contains 4 drugs. It is a standard PPA, bismuth subcitrate, tetracycline or metronidazole for 10 to 14 days duration. There is another therapy called concomitant therapy, which includes PPA, clarithromycin, amoxicillin, and nitronidazole. BID need to give for a duration of 10 to 14 days. Sequentially therapy includes a PPA, clarithromycin for plus nitronidazole for a week duration. Hybrid therapy includes PPA, amoxicillin, clarithromycin, and nitronimidazole for a week. Levofloxacin triple therapy. It includes PPA, levofloxacin, and amoxicillin. Need to give for a week. Levofloxacin sequential therapy includes PPA, amoxicillin, levofloxacin, and nitronimidazole for a week. The last one is a load therapy, where you give levofloxacin, PPA, nitazoxanide, and doxycycline for 7 to 10 days. Usually they prefer clarithromycin triple therapy for a duration of 14 days, which where the success rate is very high and the recurrence rate is very low. There are few contraindications for clarithromycin therapy also. We'll see how to choose a drug. Supposing if the patient is known allergic to penicillin or any previous macrolide allergy. Then you have to select or categorize the patient what to keep on which regime. The patient is not allergic to penicillin or macrolide. You can give any of the previously said regime. And the other group, if the patient is known allergic to any macrolide, then you have to give bismuth quadruple therapy, levofloxacin triple therapy, or levofloxacin sequential therapy. These three are the preferred one. And the other options include concomitant therapy, sequential therapy, hybrid therapy, or load therapy. Supposing the patient is known allergic to penicillin and is not allergic to any macrolides, then you can prefer clarithromycin triple with metronidazole or bismuth quadruple therapy. The patient is allergic to both penicillin and macrolides, which you come across very rarely. Then we administer bismuth quadruple therapy. In regions where clarithromycin resistance is known to be more than 15%, so better to go for other drugs. What are the general measures you advise the patient after giving this H. pylori eradication and adequate PPS and everything? Ask them to avoid cigarette smoking if he's a smoker. Ask them to avoid alcohol and try to replace aspirin with other drugs, antiplatelets, other antiplatelets, and give them and try to avoid NSAIDs. Surgical treatment. What are the indications for surgery? Emergency conditions like perforation or hemorrhage. What are the procedures? What are the procedures they do in surgical management? Poly A or Billroth through gastrectomy or gastrojejunostomy or truncal vagotomy and drainage. The procedures and the indications will be dealt by the surgery department in detail in the topic. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? So I'll be waiting for other 5 minutes. If there are any questions, please come forward. So if there are no questions, I would like to wind up the class. Thank you.